In this video, we're going to continue on with the scripting and take a look at how we created a script that is creating hole sets. We have a script now that is creating a set of 3 holes every so many inches, and actually it's divided by the height of the cabinet. So this is what we're going to take a look at. I'm going to go ahead and close these settings and then also nest this so we could see what is actually happening in the nest as well before we dive into the actual code that made this possible. So again, we have it on the 5mm layer, and we see we have a couple here. Also want to make note that we have a left side and a right side that is kind of mirrored image of one another, so we'll have to handle that in the script as well. So again, what we're going to be looking at is how the script created these 3 sets of shelf holes. So I'm going to just minimize our nesting and take a look at the script itself. We're going to more or less just kind of run through this mentally in our heads so we could see what's going on. So again, going through with the scripting, there are a couple videos out there that describe and show what a variable is. A variable is a made-up word that we've mentioned at the top that is going to be equal to a value. We've looked at conditional statements that we have here. One thing that we did not discuss in the conditional statement is the else. So we have an if, else, and if statement. Then we also looked at looping. So with those 3 items, in knowing about those 3 items in programming, we are now able to fully create and automate the placement of those holes. So just walking through this, right at the top, I have a variable that is number of shelves, and using Notepad++, when you select all of one word, it highlights it everywhere else. So down below here, we see that we have the number of shelves is going to be the length of the part in the X direction, and we are using what is called an integer divide. So we're not going to get a decimal value out of this. It's only going to be a whole number, and we are dividing that by the setting that we have in the spacing for shelves. So if we come into our settings to look to see what that value is going to be, that is in cut shelves. So cut shelves, the space is 12 inches. So we're taking the height in the X direction of our part, dividing it by 12. And if this case we have a 30, we get 12 and a half. But with that integer divide, we're actually getting a value of 2. Then I'm adding 1 to it. So number of shelves is going to be equal to 3 on this 30-inch wide part. Then we are getting the hole spacing. This is going to give us the center, equally spaced center of that hole right there by taking, again, the total length of the part, which is 30 inches, doing a real divide to get a decimal value by the number of total shelves. So it is going to go, we've already determined that this is 3, so it's taking that 30 divided by 3, which is going to be those center values there. With those numbers all calculated, we now have a loop that we have created. We're starting the loop with 1 and counting up to the total number of shelves, which is 3 subtracted by 1, which is going to loop through here, in this case, 2 times. Within each loop, we have created a circle command, 1, 2, 3 circles. The first circle, the X value is getting set by the spacing that we've done here times I, which is going to be the counter, subtracted by the hole spacing. That hole spacing is the spacing that we have set within the shelf holes, and then spacing, which is 1.25 inches. Then we have another hole that we are setting the X value just to be the spacing times I, then spacing times I plus the shelf spacing. So those are the three different holes that we are creating. It's 1, 2, and 3. This is all of them from the distance from the front. We'll jump back up and take a look at that if statement in just a bit. Then we have another loop that is creating another row of holes on the back side here. So just to show how this works, if I deleted this section of code, we'll save it and save here. We only get one row of holes there. And come back there, Control Z, because I do want to have that in place. Now what this conditional statement is doing is handling the mirrored image, or the rights and the lefts, because that's the way they're laid out. If we look at what we have right here, this is X direction and Y direction for a right side. But on a left side, the front edge of the cabinet is at the top side, so we have to do a little bit of mirroring or reverse imaging of that. And that is what's going on here in this statement here. So if the part name is equal to the left side, the distance from the front is just up in the Y direction, and then down from the top is the width in the Y direction minus the inset. We are then using those variables down in here in the value for the Y. Now for if it is not a left side, that must mean it is a right side or another part that is not a left side. So anything that falls in that is not a left side will drop down into here, which means that it is a right side or a partition. And we are just doing a little bit of reversed mirroring happening here to give these same variables a different value depending on if it's a left or a right side. So I know this is a little bit more advanced, but hopefully after you have watched the first couple of videos on the basics of scripting, you will be able to kind of flow through this script file here to understand how it is that I created the other three holes. So with the power of scripting, you're really able to get Cabinet Parts Pro to output any type of geometry or style of geometry you want. We'll continue videos showing you how to create rectangles and lines in other videos.